sua marca.
Hello. It's a very late live for me. Some beautiful people are rolling in. Good to see you. Welcome to the Smooth Criminal channel. My name is Tori. I'm a person on YouTube. I'm a former criminal lawyer. I still work as a lawyer, but not in crim anymore. But I've also had some other careers throughout my lifetime. And this channel on Smooth Criminal, we look at crimes happening the world over, but I'm also going to start focusing a lot more on some Tasmanian cases. And our particular focus on this channel is how social media is impacting criminal and civil trials. On this channel, facts matter and victims matter. So we've got a really interesting story that came out of Tasmania this week regarding two missing men. Hey, Emily. Yeah, it's incredible that Dale Nicholson was found. But yes, where is Nick? Now, weirdly, I started making a list of things that I wanted to do this year on this channel, and one of them was to, a person. One of them was to start highlighting missing people cases in Tasmania. So the other day I started a list. Excuse my left-handed scroll, but you can see there's quite a lot of names on that list. In fact, there are 50. And what I decided to do was each week, at least once a week, hopefully twice a week, I would highlight a Tasmanian case or a missing person case or a cold case. Hi, Wake the Truck Up America, and welcome to everyone else rolling in. Please do feel free to chat in our community. We're open to intelligent, lively discussions. All opinions are welcome here. The only thing we don't like is hate speech. So if you come in saying anything really stupid like that, you're going to find yourself blocked. But other than that, please feel free to chat. We're a really friendly community, one of the smaller channels on YouTube, but in my opinion, one of the best communities, if not the best. So, yeah, I had 50 cases that I wanted to start discussing. And interestingly, a missing person by the name of Dale Nicholson, missing since the 10th of December 2016, is number 46 on my list. And another missing person in Tasmania, Nicola, but known as Nick Sallese, he has been missing since the 17th of November 2008. But this week, something absolutely extraordinary happened in Tassie. So first up, I'm just going to share with you the two men that we're talking about, Dale Nicholson on the left and Nick Sallese on the right. Now, Nick Sallese's family have a Facebook group that is called Help Find Nicola Sallese. It's got 8,500 followers. And essentially what this group and the family have been doing is crowdfunding to essentially hire people to help them try and locate their beloved missing Nick. And some of that crowdsourced funding has been put towards engaging an Australian diver he's got a YouTube channel called Down Under Dan Diving, who has sonar technology and does similar work to another group that many of us know about in the US. Now, Dan does have connections to them and has got a video on his channel about how he feels about the current case happening in the States involving that particular diving group. And it's a really interesting video to watch with an open mind, because he says at the start, I know I'm going to lose support for my view on this. But if you actually have a listen to it, where he's quite scathing as well about social media, interestingly. But in any event, he does do great work. So this week in Tasmania, he located a car doing his diving and sonar equipment, trying to find Nick Sallese, and instead he found Dale Nicholson's car with Dale's body still inside. So it's one of those situations where it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, Dale Nicholson's family are relieved that he has been found and they'll be able to give him the send-off that he deserves. And in a way, I mean, not that you ever, I don't like saying closure, but closure at least to the question of where is he. But on the other hand, of course, it's very sad that Nick still hasn't been located. But the fact that Dan found Dale, they've also expressed they're feeling hopeful that Nick will be found as well. Now, Dan has also found, whilst trying to look for Nick, a couple of other cars that aren't connected to any missing people in Tasmania. They're empty cars that people have probably stolen and then pushed into bodies of water. But, you know, there is still hope that Nick will be found at some point. But, yeah, it's a rather incredible story, because it's a tale of two missing men and a family funding a dive team to try and locate their beloved Nick. That dive team has actually managed to find another missing person, Dale Nicholson. So with Dale on my list, I'm going to put a highlighter. I'm not going to put a line through his name or anything like that, but I'm just going to put a highlighter that he has been found after being missing for an incredibly long time. Now, sadly, with this case, people and the media, the way they reported it, which interesting, Emily's used the wording there, found so close to home. The media reported it. He was under our noses the whole time. And unfortunately, while I think that there was potentially good intentions in the way they wrote that headline, it has given the members of the public an opportunity to become very scathing of the police, which isn't really fair, because the police and the family of Dale Nicholson have continued to look for him this whole time. They've never given up on trying to find him. And they, like in cases in the States, like Kylie Rodney, for example, don't have the funding or the equipment that these dive teams do have. So people were very quick to be overly critical of the cops, unfortunately. But fortunately, while I was reading people who were being very scathing of the cops, more people were on there defending the cops and pointing out that the article mentioned how the search for Dale has never stopped, nor has it for Nick. But it's just so disappointing, once again, these keyboard warriors sitting in their living rooms on a computer being so brash and bold and making out they could have done a better job. But it was really encouraging to see that more people were calling that kind of crappy behaviour out than agreeing with them. So that was a positive. But yes, even Australia and Tasmania are not immune from these new sort of true crime sleuths who are overly critical of everyone around them, but all they're doing is sitting in their living room. Like, what have they actually done for their community today, except fight with strangers on the internet and act like they're better investigators than cops? So it's great news for the Nicholson family. I'm just going to give you some more information about the story itself. But, yeah, it's pretty fascinating, and great news that Dale has been located. Now, hopefully, Nick will be as well. It was a cold case in that all the leads and everything had essentially been pursued without any success. However, the police and the family were still actively, like every missing person in Tasmania, are still trying to find out what happened to them. And I've got so many cases on this list. Like I said, there's 50. Then that was just from spending maybe 45 minutes researching as many as I could. So that list is potentially going to get even longer, but there's some really fascinating stories coming up on this channel. If you're interested in hearing about some cases in Tassie, this little tiny island at the bottom of Australia, you might like to join us for discussions and stuff, have a bit of a change from the cases that seem to just get covered by multiple channels for months on end. A few people have already bailed, unfortunately, from this audience, so obviously it's not appealing to everyone, but it's really good to have those of you who are still with me here. So yeah, it's not going to be a long live either. I've been at work all day and I'm ready for bed soonish, but I just wanted to cover this story because I think it's remarkable. So the last time Dale was seen alive in New Norfolk, where he lived, was the 10th of December 2016, and a neighbour spoke to him that afternoon on the phone. But then he vanished. His family reported him missing the next day, and it really was one of those situations where he appeared to have, vanished without a trace. There was an extensive search for him at the time, and it was largely based on, sorry, I'll just turn my phone off, on his morning habits. And, he would get up and go and buy the paper. So they sort of had a fairly good idea of his daily patterns, but still no luck. And ultimately in 2021, in a coronial inquest, the coroner found that all available evidence that they had indicated that he was dead, but that was the only outcome that they could conclude, because there just wasn't any other information. Everyone was pretty clueless of where he'd gone. He had been treated for depression at the time of his death, and he also had a history of alcohol and drug abuse that was mentioned in the coroner's report as well. But yeah, he disappeared, and so did his Ford Falcon. And then on, what's today? Tuesday. So on Sunday, the dive team found his car. It was submerged in the Derwent River, right near a car park for a local swimming pool. And they retrieved the car and also the remains of who is believed to be Dale Nicholson, although that hasn't actually been confirmed, the formal identification. But, in these cases, it's fairly likely that the person in that car will be Dale. I wonder if this shows. No, it doesn't, sadly. But yeah, he literally lived around the corner from where he has ultimately been found. His 3 sisters survived him. His mother, sadly, had died not long after he disappeared, so she died without knowing where he was. And yeah, his family expressed surprise at how close to his home and to them they'd been all along, but they do believe that they've got final closure now. They can lay Dale to rest, and they're not going to spend the rest of their lives wondering where he is. And that's the thing that people who have missing loved ones, that not knowing is hideous and horrible. So people that are actively getting out there and trying to find missing people are driven by that need to give the families some sense of relief. Even if it's bad news and the person is found deceased, at least they're not left for the rest of their lives wondering what happened to them. I mean, I'm haunted by the Beaumont children in South Australia. I think I might Google it before I say it emphatically. I know at least one of the parents has passed away. Jim is still alive, Jim Beaumont, but he's now well into his 90s and still doesn't know what happened to his 3 children who disappeared in Adelaide. His wife, Nancy, died in 2019. So sadly, she died. She was 92 when she died. And they disappeared in 1966 at Glenelg Beach in South Australia. So, yeah, that's an incredibly long amount of time. And Jim is still alive. The dad is still, it's just awful. And will most likely die without knowing what happened to his 3 kids. I'd love to see the support that AWP received for finding missing people here in Oz, especially Tas, minus the alleged shit show that comes with AWP. The support. What do you mean by that? I mean, diving down under Dan diving is the guy who's in Australia. He's Australian, who is looking and helping the Sallese family, looking for Nick, who's been missing since the 17th of November 2008, but he does have very close connections to AWP. And like I said, he has provided his thoughts on the current proceedings happening in the States regarding Jared. And he does preempt his comments saying, I may lose subscribers because of my view, but it is worth listening to with an open mind and seeing why he has the position that he has. But it's essentially a guy who's got a background in law, taking the innocent until proven guilty, but it also sounds like he has access to more information than what the social media sleuths ran with at the start. So it's an interesting one. It's definitely a case that I'm going to follow. But like Dan, because of my legal background, I have to take the innocent until proven guilty position. And as facts come out, that's when we can discuss it and make whatever judgments we want to at the end, not beforehand. But it's interesting. He does comment on the social media impact on that story as well. It's affecting so many cases the world over, this social media irresponsibility and the way they're reporting stuff. What else can I tell you about this story? Actually, I'll show you some of the photos in the article that I've got up. This is the ABC, Australian Broadcasting Commission, not American. Get me off the screen. So this is the a picture of where they found him. So I'll just scroll back in a little bit. So you've got this swimming pool here, the community swimming pool in New Norfolk, and then the car park down here. And where this, you can just see, I'll zoom in a bit, where they've put that tape in. Oh, the car was found down in here. Back in the day when he went missing, see how there's all these black bollards along the walkway and the road? They weren't there when he went missing. They've been put up since. I don't know if it's because some other person ended up going into the water or they just sort of went, we really need to put bollards up because if people come into this car park late at night, they could end up in the drink. But yeah, he was found in this area. And at the time that he went missing, there were no sort of tire marks or screeches, any sort of sign of any car on the car park or anything like that having gone into the water. And then if you scroll it back out a little bit, it doesn't show you, but up in here in this area, this is sort of the edge of this little country town called New Norfolk in the Derwent Valley, which is absolutely gorgeous. And he potentially used to go along here to get his morning paper and so on. But yeah, this is down here is where he ended up. He may have even gone there at night. Like, who knows? The fact that he was in his car, he's ended up in the water. I mean, even these arrows and stuff now for the car park, apparently back then you could kind of come in and out from both directions, and they probably didn't even have marked parks and things. So it's quite possible that he came down this road and just kept going straight into the water down in here. Yeah, so the divers are affiliated with YouTube channel Down Under Dan Diving, which helps families of missing people by searching waterways. Oh, hang on, sorry. Yeah, he was last seen going to get breakfast with his fishing rods. So someone did say him. I thought the last contact was someone who spoke to him in the afternoon the day before, but someone obviously saw him going to get breakfast. I didn't know that detail. But you can see this is just another angle, and they have put this tape up because that's where they found the car. But yeah, he was found down in this area. They've been there the whole time. The amazing thing is the family has been walking this path. They've walked this path 1,000 times. Everyone in town walks by this location, and you just never know. And there's a little news story about him being found. It's just me by the looks of it now. So I'm just going to cover what I need to and in this live, and hopefully some people will find it really interesting. I'll just now share with you, because it is Nick Sallese's family who engaged Dan and his dive team to try and find their missing family member. So I do want to just end this live with a little bit of information about Nick Sallese. Hey, Miss Kay. I'm just covering the story I was chatting about this morning with the search for Nick Sallese and the dive team finding the body of missing Dale Nicholson. So, yeah, he was number 46 on the list. Not that I was going to do it in any particular order, but I made a list of all the missing people and unsolved cases in Tasmania at the moment. There's 50 on the list, and there could well be more. That represents about 45 minutes of research. But I'm happy that I can now highlight number 46, Dale Nicholson, because he has been found. But Nick Sallese's family are the ones that actually did some crowdfunding to engage a dive team to look for their missing loved one. And in the process, the dive team located Dale, but Nick is still at this point missing. But the family's been incredibly gracious. They're sort of saying that it has actually given them hope that Nick will also be found as well. But I just want to give you some more information about Nick Sallese, or Nicola, but he was known by everyone as Nick. He was 69 years old when he went missing on the 17th of November 2008, along with his silver Toyota Camry. Since 2010, his family have maintained a social media presence, trying to find answers to his disappearance. And that's Nick. If anyone in Tasmania happens to watch this, my list is working. I know. It's crazy. So I should have clarified, meaning more support for humans like diving down under Dan diving deserves support. You saw his post that he put out and appreciate, yes, innocent until proven guilty. Yes, absolutely. And it was, do you know what, wake the truck up? I just found it really refreshing too that someone who's actually closely connected to AWP and Jared in particular, who's got a lot more information than most people, and just listening to his experience working with disadvantaged kids in his lifetime, his understanding of childhood development, his correcting facts that the online sleuths ran with incorrect information. It's pretty interesting. And just to listen to someone being rational and reasonable, and at the end of the day, certainly not making any excuses for Jared, but also not buying into the let's hang this man before he's even been convicted of these crimes. And just some of the additional information that he put out there that I haven't heard one YouTuber mention or correct. Everyone's just run with this, once again, unverified information. It was nice to just listen to someone who was being rational and reasonable and sticking to the facts that they know. Hey, yep. So what are you, Grover? But yeah, it's incredible that they've found another missing. And look, they may find more while they're here looking for Nick as well. They have found a few other cars. I mentioned that earlier on, and sadly, neither of them have led to any missing people. But they're finding cars all over the place in Tassie underwater. And fortunately for Dale Nicholson's family, I mean, they had accepted that it was most likely that he had died, but to be able to lay him to rest and they've got closure in terms of no longer wondering what happened to him. It's an incredible thing. And I love that Nick's family, who are funding the dive team, and well, it's a crowd-sourced funding as well, but rather than be all, oh, bummer, they found the wrong guy, they're like, well, it's giving us hope that, they're going to find Nick at some point as well. Like, unbelievably gracious, I think. And that's why covering stories like this on this channel are so rewarding for me, because we're actually looking at people who actually knew victims and seeing how dignified and gracious that they are. And it's the polar opposite of the vultures that we witness on YouTube, who just continue to create new victims. With every case that happens, my instant thought is, how many innocent people are going to be turned into victims along with the victims of this crime? And I mean, the Idaho murders, I can't even count now the number of innocent people who've been turned into victims, and just the filthy, angry, disrespectful, despicable behavior of people on social media. But then you've got these actual family members who must be unbelievably heartbroken and still grieving. I mean, look, the Idaho murders, there's going to be grieving for a long time, and people just need to be left to grieve in peace. But these massive YouTube channels with huge followings just keep feeding the sleuths and all this irresponsible speculation, and not once seem to give any consideration that these are real lives that they're talking about, and they're affecting real lives. So it's so beneficial and rewarding for us. I don't mind how small this community stays. I would much rather talk about the graciousness of people at the worst times in their lives, when they're dealing with not knowing where a loved one is, or that a loved one's just been murdered, and just how beautifully and how dignified they are in the way they handle it, compared to absolute strangers who didn't know these victims, and just how hideous they are. And not only how hideous they are, but how hideous they are constantly saying, this is for the victims, hashtag justice for insert whatever name you want. And yet they are destroying lives, and they're disrespecting people who are grieving. It's so despicable. So, yeah, I don't mind if our channel stays small and like-minded people keep coming here, because just seeing the kindness of people who know victims and how dignified and how polite and how gracious they can be, it gives me hope, because it's the people closest to the victims and how they behave that matters to me, not these horrible random people online who just turn into the nastiest pieces of work imaginable. who forget that they're talking about real lives and real people, and who have no connection to the victims, even though they act like they know more about the victims than anybody else. Okay, mini rant over. For about 12 months, the Sallese family has been crowdfunding to finance ongoing underwater searches of Tasmanian rivers and creeks. And they have actually, like I was saying, Dan's team have located a number of vehicles. In a YouTube video from last year, Jason Sallese described access to sonar technology as a game changer in the long-running search for his father. And then there's a bit of a great plug about that, and also that they haven't had access to it before, because it just, that technology just isn't available here. It's certainly not, the police certainly don't have access to that. So for all of the little armchair detectives in Tasmania in particular that have been criticising the police for not finding Dale Nicholson, even though the media reported he was under everyone's noses the whole time, once again ignoring the fact that we don't have the manpower or the technology. The cops just don't have access to that. The reality is, just like in the States, that people have to privately engage dive teams if they want to start searching waterways, because the cops just don't have the capacity to do it. Little plug there for Down Under Dan Diving. And they go to say, we hope that this will be what brings Dad home so we can lay him to rest. And then there's just a pic of Dan on the left and one of his buddies and their little boat that they go out in. Last year, the team found a target in the Huon River, which is south of Hobart, down near Franklin. And it's about 290 kilometres from Sheffield, which is up in the northwest of Tasmania, where Nick Sallese lived. And then Dan emerged from the water with a license plate and actually said, "Sorry, it's not your dad's car, mate," when they showed the license plate. And that particular car was empty. They found I think 2 or 3 empty cars. And then they've just found the one that had Dale Nicholson still inside the car. Again, in Longford, which is also up in the northwest, the South Esk River, about 70 k's from where Nick Sallese lived, they found another car, and again, it wasn't his car, and again, that was another empty car that they found. They're certainly clearing our waterways of all these dumped cars as well. This is really interesting too. Are you listening, Web Sleuths? Not Web Sleuths, they're a good group. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Irresponsible Sleuths. Sarah Wayland, a senior lecturer at the University of New England in Armidale, New South Wales, described the grief of families dealing with unanswered questions over a loved one's disappearance as unending torture. Unending torture. And you could use those words to describe families of victims who know what's happened to the victims as well. Aussies towing the line. Facts, not fuckery. Exactly. Hey, Joman. It's a really interesting story. I'm nearly finished, but I had created a list of cases in Tasmania that I wanted to cover this year on the channel, and I have 50 unsolved cases and missing persons cases that I was going to cover. And then this week, I wrote this list last weekend. This week, a dive team who've been engaged by a family of a missing man called Nick Sallese, they crowdfunded to get a dive team down here with sonar equipment. They've been searching bodies of water all over the island and located several empty cars yeah, I've got 50 cases, and that's just 45 minutes of research. There'll be more. So yeah, I've got one for every week nearly at the moment. But anyway, this week they found a car 2 days ago, and in the car, it was a car belonging to a man called Dale Nicholson, who's number 46 on my list. It's not Nick Sallese, who's number 13 on my list. And I mean, it's not in any particular order. It's just cases that I found. As I found them, I added them to my list. So they found one missing man, Dale Nicholson, while they were searching for another missing man, Nick Sallese. So it's one of those bittersweet stories because on the one hand, Dale Nicholson's family, Dale has been missing since 2016 and Nick has been missing since 2008. But one family now knows what happened to their loved one and they're able to lay him to rest, and they've got closure in terms of not wondering where he is anymore. But now the other family, the Sallese family who have been crowdfunding the dive team, they came out and they were incredibly gracious, and rather than saying, oh, bugger, they found someone else's missing family member, they've actually said that it's giving them hope that this team is going to find their loved one as well. But I'm just talking now about this article, how families that are dealing with unanswered questions over a loved one's disappearance, it's unending torture. The senior lecturer went on to say that the loss gets easier over time, but it becomes more complicated because they have to consider how to live their lives alongside this ultimate mystery. Most families of long-term missing persons will seek out independent advice, whether that be connecting with psychics, speaking to a private investigator, or private search and rescue operators. That's Nick Sallese's car that's missing along with him. And let's just put out positive vibes that the dive team Down Under Dan Diving managed to locate Nick and his car as well. She's also talking about families that have rented out small planes and pilots as well. There are more than 50,000 people who are reported missing in Australia every year. Only a small percentage become long-term missing people. The police are dealing with a number of cases. They have to make decisions as to the balance of probability as to what resources can be used to locate someone, whereas for a family with a missing family member, that's their only focus. Families of those individuals who go on to be missing for months or years attempt to make sure no stone is left unturned. Even if a body is found years later, it's not like the family has a jump start on the grieving process because they've been living through this unresolved loss for all of this time. Once a body is found, a different type of grief is experienced, a grief that is final. Now, we mentioned the coroner's report for Dale Nicholson. In 2000, a Tasmanian coroner has also found on the balance of probabilities that Mr. Sallese died on or about November the 17th, 2008. And there's Down Under Dan diving team. They're on the South Esk River at Longford. That's that town that's not that far from the town Sheffield where Nick Sallese lived. But so far they haven't found him or his car. The coroner also said they couldn't make any findings as to the cause and manner of Mr. Sallese's death. But the coroner added he was satisfied based on the information that's been made available to me that the circumstances surrounding the disappearance of Mr. Sallese are not suspicious. So, yeah, crazy story out of Tasmania this year. Well, hang on, I'll go back up to wake the truck up. Oz, have feelings, empathy, compassion, and humanity. USA, not all will sell their souls for a dime, no matter the consequences. And that's why this channel will never be a big one. I ain't selling my soul for a dime or 10 cents. We'll continue to do what we do. and like our reflections at the end of the day, and sleep well at night knowing we're good people, right? With Dale, it's most likely that it's difficult. I mean, he had a history of drug and alcohol abuse, but he was also being treated for depression at the time of his disappearance. I thought the last time someone had any contact with him was the day before he was reported missing, which was a neighbour who spoke with him on the phone that afternoon. But then the article that I read just before mentioned that he was actually seen that on the day that he was reported missing, heading out for breakfast. But his car ended up in a body of water. I'll just show that again really briefly, and then I'm going to wrap up this live. It's been a crazy day at work. I'll just show you. It's very difficult for them to make accurate accounts of what happened, but they can speculate with the information that they have. So this is a photo of the area where he was found. So I'll zoom in again. So down here you can see like the crime scene tape that they've put up across the bollards there, and his car was found down here in this area of water. So, I mean, you can, with all the facts, you can look at it and go, okay, well, one option, and the line markings that you can see here now in this car park, it's actually the car park for this community pool. They've all been put in since. So it's possible back when he went missing back in 2016 that you could drive in to this car park from down this road or from this way as well. Who knows? This might all be new. This might have been added on at some point. But I guess, yeah, they'll never be able to accurately work out what happened, but it could be a logical explanation that he drove down here and just kept driving down into the water, into this area. And whether it was deliberate or an accident, whether something happened to him and he might have had a health episode, which happens a lot, unfortunately, and people end up, like they might have a cardiac issue, they end up pressing the accelerator even though they're having cardiac arrest at the time, and that could have happened. He could have just accelerated and just flown straight down into the water. We don't know. I don't think they're ever going to know. I mean, he was being treated for depression, but whether that's relevant or not. But the fact is he's been found, and that's the positive news. And hopefully Nick Sallese will be found as well. And this is a photo of it from another angle. So these bollards here, the black ones, they've been put in since as well. Not because he went missing, but just, safety standards and things have improved over the years. But you can see here it'd be very easy just to drive straight in to that bit of water if that bollard wasn't there. And these star pickets weren't there either. They've been put up by the cops. So, yeah. I guess coroners have to look at all the evidence and facts that they have, and that's why they often find, that they believe that person's passed away. Things like not using their bank accounts, nobody seeing them not contacting family and friends. But they do sink very quickly. But yeah, I don't know about the under the influence, because it was in the morning that he was last seen. He was seen by somebody who knew him heading off for breakfast. I'll see if I can find the exact quote. I mean, that's not to say he wasn't under the influence, but I haven't got the coroner's report. I could always look that up, I guess, as well. But the findings in the coronial inquiry, yeah, I mean, this article is weird because it says he was last seen alive Okay, hang on. He was last seen alive on the 10th of December 2016 by a neighbor, and that's the person who saw him heading off for breakfast. And then he spoke to a friend on the phone that afternoon, and he was reported missing the following day. So yeah, the last day he was seen alive was the 10th. So yes, it's quite possible something happened that night, and then in the morning nobody could reach him, and that's why he was reported missing. And the coroner's report was handed down in 2021 and found that all available evidence pointed to him being dead, but was unable to make further findings. The coroner found Mr. Nicholson had a history of alcohol and drug use and was being treated for depression at the time of his death. And that's essentially the outcome of that investigation. So yeah, it is possible that he might have taken his own life by doing that, or he might have had an episode and he ended up accidentally in the water. We don't know. Whether they can determine anything from the remains in the car, I don't think it's likely, but, the remains might literally be the skeleton. I didn't mention medication. No, I just said he was being treated for depression. I don't know whether that means he was seeing a psychologist or whether he was medicated. I've got no idea. So yeah, but so good news on the one hand, but sad news too that Nick remains missing. But the family have come out and said that that finding Dale Nicholson has made them feel hopeful that Nick is going to be found as well. A lot of people are donating to them because they want to keep funding the dive team to try and find Nick. The public are also putting pressure on the government to help with funding as well. But yeah, the family has been incredibly gracious that Dale has been found, and it's giving them hope that Nick will be found as well. Just seeing if I can find a quote from the family, the Sallese family, before I end this live. Because if it wasn't for them and the public crowdfunding the dive team, Dale would still be missing as well. I'll go back to that other article because that did quote the family as well. It has given them hope that Nick will one day be found as well. That's not a quote. That's just a comment in the article. But I'm pretty sure Jason was... He was quoted talking about the dive team finding cars, but there's no quote from him from this week. But they are pretty active on their Facebook. I mean, they posted yesterday that Dale had been found. I'm just saying they're often really active in the comments, so just give me one more minute. Bear with me, people. I'm scrolling through Facebook, so there's a lot of people that are congratulating them on getting the dive team down here, and that it's great news for Dale's family, and hopefully there'll be great news for them soon too. And at this point in time, I mean, the coroner has essentially found that they believe Nick is also unfortunately dead. So the good news is that his body will be located and they'll be able to lay him to rest as well. There's thousands of comments. They're giving lots of love hearts and stuff, but it's an incredible outcome, and yeah, the family has been unbelievably gracious. So yes, interesting story out of Tassie. I've been able to put pink highlighter through Dale because he's now been located. So that's one off the list that I won't have to cover. Yeah, these 50 missing cases, they're not all missing. Some of them are cold cases too. There's a lot of unsolved murders well, not a lot. There's about 7 or 8 unsolved murders that are on the list too. Have you wakeboarded in New Norfolk? And your high school picnics happen at that picnic ground? I love New Norfolk. It's beautiful. The Valley of Love. You could email Senator Jackie Lambie for the funding. I noticed the Premier's been tagged repeatedly on that Facebook page. Yeah, I've been. I did it. I had a quick look today, weirdly, to see if there was any news on Julian, but sadly, no. It's a bit unfortunate. It's a bit sad. It's horrible, and I think another hiker's gone missing from that area now too. It's very sad. And good to see you, Cement Shoes. Much love to you, mate. Always lots of love for you here. Thinking of you a lot. So that's it, Groovers. Yes, there's 46 missing on the missing persons list, correct? And then on top of that, for my list of 50, there's 4 other things that I want to cover that are Tassie related as well. So from number 5 onwards is the cases that I've made a note that I really want to have a look at. And there's a few, like I said, unsolved murders. But there's also the majority of them are missing people. And I think it's really important that we highlight them, and you never know, somebody might stroll into the smooth criminal community and go, hang on a sec. It's really weird. One of the cases, it's a woman who's been missing for a couple of decades now. And I've only just started researching them, but this particular one, I was reading an article from her family, and one of the family members said, I refuse to buy into the foul play theories on this. I like to think that she had just had enough of her life and she's gone off and started a whole new life with a new identity. And I swear to God, that afternoon I was in a shop and I saw this woman and I was like, it was an uncanny resemblance. But then I went, you're looking at this woman thinking of the photo of her when she went missing 20 plus years ago. She would be 20 years older now, but it was just this brief moment of maybe she did reinvent herself. But anyway, there'll be lots of really sad stories about missing people, but I can't believe it. Like, not even a week after I made this list, and one of them's already been highlighted as being found. Unbelievable. It's because of arts in our community that he was. No, I'm kidding. Well done to Down Under Dan Diving. Yeah, the Daryl Brooks videos on Wake the Truck Up are great. Feel free to drop links too. I mean, I am about to end this live, but do promote your channels as much as you want in my chat. If there's mods floating, I think Emily is a mod. But Emily probably doesn't know how to. Oh, you're not a mod. You should be. Hang on a sec. Groover? You are now. All right. So, yeah, positive vibes for Julian Sands, for sure. These are Turkish earrings. I love them. But I did get a great pair. I got 3 pairs of earrings in Singapore, actually. I was wearing a pair the other night and someone commented on them too. Hope never fades, and it is the last thing we can cling to, indeed. No, you've never been a mod on Smooth Criminal. You're still a mod on Tasmania Calling. I don't have many mods on this channel, but let me just get Wake the Truck Up's link so I can drop that in the chat. You're doing some great stuff. I've got a few I need to watch, by the way. Okay, I've got quite a few to watch. Everyone jump over and sub to Wake the Truck Up America. Hopefully we'll get some wakeboarding on the Derwent River videos from you before too long. But you're so true. It's so right, Joman. Like, hope is the thing. And I just love how gracious his family are. They're like, we've been crowdfunding, getting a dive team down here because the Tas police just don't have the manpower or the technology, bit like in the States. And they've managed to find another missing man. And instead of being all bitter and twisted about it, they're like, this is giving us hope. Like, they're going to find Dad. They will find Dad. And I hope they do find Nick. It'd be lovely to put highlights. I'd love this whole double-page list. I would love it all to be pink by the end of the year. I don't think it will be, but we're going to keep putting things out there. But what I'm going to do is give you guys an opportunity. Why not? You can vote, or not vote. From number 5 to number 50, pick a number, and that will be the case I'm going to highlight next time. The first person who puts a number between 5 and 50 in chat, that will be the next case that I look at. I mean, I would have, if I went through it in numerical order, Nick was number 13 on the list, so. Oh, good. New subs for Wake the Truck Up as well. 42, the meaning of life. Okay. All righty. I have the next one. I'm not going to tell you anything about it. You'll have to make sure you subscribe to this channel if you're not already, so that you find out who the next one is. If I can do 2 a week, I will. I think it's really important, especially to cover ones that are where I live. I can keep showing interesting cases from around the world, but there are missing people in Tasmania, and any sort of publicity, telling their stories, putting information out there has got to be a positive thing. And yeah, I mean, I live here. I'll be able to actually take you guys to towns where these people were last seen and do like a good little deep dive into some of them as well. So it makes sense to me this year that the focus of my channel is more, if I'm going to cover cases, they're relevant and more Tasmanian and Australian cases. But my primary focus on this channel will always be the impact social media is having on cases. And even this particular case, I stumbled across a video on Down Under Dan Diving's channel, where even he talks about how social media is impacting trials these days and influencing the way people think, and how most people are now guilty until proven innocent. It's interesting. A lot of people are talking about it. Yeah, 42, the answer to everything. I think it's a great. Emily, no, I'm keeping you in suspenders. I'm keeping me in suspenders as well. This isn't one that I've done a big dive into yet, so let me just remind myself of it. I did sort of have a quick read about. Oh, okay. Interesting. There's not a lot of info on this one, so I'm going to be having to do a fair amount of research. This is someone who's been missing since 2012, But yeah, there's not a lot of info about this one. So I'll be doing a bit of research, and I could actually take you down to the town where he was last seen because it's not far from where I live. Give us a clue. Release initials. You'll just have to hit that notification bell, Emily, and be here for the next one. Now I don't say that 5 times fast. Now I don't know what you wanted me to do. My wisdom. Well, thank you, Wake the Truck Up America. Not many people say that about me, but to appreciate her wisdom. Well, I mean, I made a list and we've already found one of the people on it, like not even a week later. This channel is powerful, this community. We've got the power. So, yeah, really interesting story. I hope some people just from the headline alone decide to listen to it, even if you put me on like mega fast so I sound like a little chipmunk. It's a really interesting story. You got to admit it. There's a family funding a dive team to find their missing relative, and the dive team's found another missing dude. Like, truly. It's kind of cool. And who knows? They may find half of the list. I'm certainly going to be getting onto the crowdfunding and donate as well, because I truly believe that this is, in fact, every time they find someone, I'll give them another dono to keep them down here, keep them diving, keep looking. Who knows? It wouldn't be great if even 5 people are found this year from this list. I mean, the fact that one has been is amazing to me. Wisdom and a prevailing voice of sanity. I need to get drunk before I go live in future. You're all giving me too much credit. Too much credit. But yes, hit the thumbs up and leave your DNA. Guys, thanks for hanging out. I have had a request from not just a subscriber and mod, but also a really good friend of mine in both this community and Tasmania Calling to do a reaction to a trial that's underway in America at the moment. And as it was her birthday today, and it's her birthday wish, tomorrow I am going to be doing a reaction to the opening statements. I know a tiny bit about this case, but I don't want to look at anything till tomorrow. I want my reaction to be fresh and original. So that's something I'm going to be doing tomorrow. I'm making a video for this channel. I'm making 2 videos about 2 more victims from not 2 more, probably 6 more victims from the Idaho murders, thanks to the social media irresponsible channels on YouTube and their loyal and idiotic sleuths who don't question anything. I have done a brief Toy Accordingly update, but I think I'll just do a little quick video about that for anyone who missed that. That's the girl who was murdered in Queensland, and the main suspect is waiting to be extradited back to Australia from India. We've covered her on this channel. There's also an update now. The Queensland shootings, I have wanted to do one for ages. That story is totally out of control. There's so much going on. But the daughter of 2 of the perps who shot and killed 2 cops and an innocent neighbour up in Queensland has spoken out this week. So I'm going to be covering that as well. So there's a lot coming up on Smooth Criminal. Plus, I've got number 42 on my list to talk about too. And that's not even taking into account what might happen on Tasmania Calling. I think there'll definitely be at least 1 beach walk this week for some beach therapy. I think we can all use a bit of that. And you might even see me cooking back in the shitty kitty kitchen as well. I'm on keto again now, guys, though. So if you're not into keto, you may not want to tune in for that. But if you want to see what I eat while I'm doing keto, it's delicious. I'll be doing some cooking stuff as well. Torek is a new man to Down Under. Especially because I live on Tasmania and the whole map of Tasmania thing as well. It's all getting wrong. It's getting wrong. No, it's not. But look at you all playing the guessing game. So, yeah, guys, thanks so much for hanging out. I hope you found that story really interesting. I did. things like that don't happen in Tassie every day of the week. And yeah, mountains of stuff coming up. Oh, and also Finn and I are doing an episode of Batshit on the Batshit channel. So if you type in Batshit with an exclamation mark for the I and shit, and then filter it to channel, you'll find us if you're not on there already. But I always put reminders up on my community pages as well, so keep an eye out for that. That will be on Thursday, 9:30 a.m. in the morning, Australian Eastern Standard Time. Keto's fabulous, Cement. So, yeah, you might want to tune into some Shitty Kitty Kitchen keto cooking action. I love it. My energy levels go through the roof. My brain is way more switched on. I have so much more energy and focus. You do feel a bit wonky for the first week or so. It's called keto flu. But once it all settles in, like, it's incredible. I just can't sustain it forever. Like, I can't do, well, I could challenge myself to do a year of it, but I live in Tassie and we've got the best potatoes in the world and I love me a spud. So I have to at some point shift from keto into very low carb and treat myself to the occasional potato. But if you truly choose the keto way of life, you'll never eat a spud again. And to me, that's criminal. As much as I love my crime, food crime, well, I'll never be into that. I'll see you all soon, guys. Take care.
DJ Gorbacha.
Are you okay?